So thank you everyone again for joining us for another episode of Women Lifting Women, a podcast dedicated to female voices in leadership and tech. And tonight, this evening, I'm joined by Stephanie, which I'm super excited to have her join me. And for anyone who have forgotten who I am, Emma Raz. I am on commercial at number 8, and of course, I'm the host of Women Lifting Women podcast. So, Stephanie, over to you. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Sure. Well, one, thank you so much for having me. I've reviewed some of your other podcasts. So, one, I am humbly appreciative, but look forward to the conversation. So, sure, Stephanie Donovan. I am Chief Revenue Officer for Triton Digital. Triton Digital is a leading provider of digital audio services for the radio industry. We've been in this space for over 18 years. Gosh, I've been a part of the company for the majority, actually most of that time. And just succinctly, Triton provides enterprise monetization tools to predominantly our radio partners around the globe, but also on-demand partners, podcasting partners, anyone that is looking to monetize the direct as well as indirect solutions that they have. We further provide the hosting solutions, both live and podcasting, as well as leading audio measurement solutions for streaming in our webcast metrics. You may have seen our podcast metrics measurement service that provides rankers throughout the globe. So our mission is to really elevate audio, specifically for in the media marketing mix of advertisers and by agencies, and contribute to the future of the audio industry.
So, I think almost, and if you ever heard about audio, if you're somewhat related to audio, you have heard about Triton. So that's, you guys have been doing an amazing job for, as you said, 18 years, which is is impressive. And I want to hear more about your role within Triton and kind of your journey within Triton. And I'll go back to,
Sure. So as you can imagine, my journey is quite long. So I'll start with my role today. I have the opportunity to oversee the client-facing team. That team is responsible for revenue generation and retention, the programmatic supply and demand relationships that we have been blessed to have, as well as their growth. Our team focuses on publisher acquisition and customer success. So I've been with the company for 17 years, almost 18, and my role has matured throughout. But today I lead a team that expands across 9 time zones. We are blessed to have partners in 82, maybe 83 if a deal goes in next week, 83 countries. And it really is an opportunity to promote digital audio's growth and advocacy throughout the globe. We don't take that responsibility lightly. We like to be the thought leaders that are driving innovation through our technology, as well as advocacy for how audio's efficacy can help advertisers reach the audience they're looking to meet.
That's really interesting. It's also really interesting how aligned you see your role in a company kind of going together, and how much you have aligned yourself with Triton. I'm assuming also because you've been with them for so long, it almost became part of who you are.
It is, and it's an extension of my background. I started my background in radio, going to local advertisers, talking about how a local radio spot in the day could help move traffic into their stores, could help make their cash registers ring. Fast forward to today, 2025, and that story is now prevalent across many different platforms. Then I was talking about how AM/FM could drive it in the car, in their home. Now I'm talking about it on the go, in their ears, on the train, and it's pervasive across somebody's lifestyle. And I love the fact that Triton, throughout our 18 years, has really progressed with the audience as they've adopted audio into more of their live streams, all the while bringing the advertisers with them. And that's something where today, Triton, and it sits at the table, the cool kids table, as I like to say, where the biggest growth is happening for our partners. It's on the digital audio side because of the audience migration as well as the advertiser interest.
Very interesting. And how do you feel like your leadership style also evolved through that time of being from that first going to store by store to today when you're running 9 time zone, 82, 83 countries? Yes. How do you feel like you had to evolve?
Definitely. If we just talk about the years of maturity, maturity comes through a lot of failure. Maturity comes through a lot of experiences, highs and lows. The thing that I couch the most is grace. I've had the blessing of mentors and managers that have given me grace to fail. Neil Shore, our founder and former CEO, always said, "It's okay to fail. Just don't make the same mistake twice." And so that ability to um, experience and learn and grow from it, and having the grace to accept that it's okay to fail, I think has been one of the biggest growth areas for me. And I try and impart that on my team because we're in a lot of uncharted territories, both as an industry as well as a company. And it's okay. And to give someone the grace to experience and try something different and trust them to use their perspectives, use their experience to make decisions, and okay to fail, and then talk about it. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't hold the team accountable. I mean, everything that we do backstops against revenue. So there's an inherent accountability to what we do. And I'm the foremost authority because I'm accountable at the end for a number. But, even John Rosso, our CEO today, allows us the grace to try new things. The other thing that I've learned, and I try and employ with my team, is something that I've been given for the last 12, 13 years by managers, mentors, and especially John Rosso, is to provide empathy as well as accountability. And you can do both. Mm-hmm. And in terms of doing that, I think providing that culture of being authentic and being human, as well as being accountable, is very important. And I think that we do that because we have the strength in leadership. I learned it from John, and I hope I pass it to the team.
What do you think is the most important thing in maintaining that balance of accountability with also the freedom to, like, you're free to fail, almost like you're almost giving them the assurance to fail, and like, yes, you can do it, it's okay, because sometimes people are so afraid to fail they never try. And then with that, as you said, empathy plus accountability, which is, I agree, has to contradict each other, but it can be tricky.
Sure. So I think the first thing starts with trust. I have been blessed with a lot of trust placed in me, which means you have to deliver. In order to maintain that trust, you have to deliver. So there's the accountability part. But part of trust is being okay to step back and assess yourself. And one of the things that I've learned over the years, whether it was Triton or even before, is to trust myself to assess honestly. And I do that quite transparently with my team, as well as even at home. I think it starts from how I manage. I have 2 daughters. I'm now raising young women to go into the workforce, to go into their careers. And if I can't be honest with them when I make a mistake, and even with the team, when I make a mistake, or hearing them, allowing them to be leaders and allowing them to own their decisions and supporting them in their decisions rather than my voice being the dominant one. I think that's true with my daughters as well. My daughters are 18 and 20, almost 21. And I need them to see me fail, but I also need them to see me successful. And I hope when they go into the workforce, they see my work ethic, they see my preparedness, and they see that that is what drives me, not my title, not my role, or even not, certainly the lifestyle we have.
I mean, I think that's like one of the greatest gifts you can give anyone is the freedom to fail. And I think that accountability and being okay and seeing you fall and get up and fail and get up is such a wonderful gift.
I hope it's something every day.
I mean, I think so. And because I've seen this, how that fear of failure can paralyze people, and how that fear can um, prevent us from trying. I think that's one of the things that was really helpful for me is I worked in sales for many years, still do. And I've been told no so many times. Like in startup, I've been told no thousands of times. Okay. So as you said before, that like I just don't like to make the same mistake again. And that's the one thing that can really drive me crazy. But because I had to learn to just bounce back, it really gave me the freedom to then try new things. I'll just go really ballsy and I will enter a new environment and I'm like, okay, we're going to do this. And it might be crazy and it sounds crazy, but I'm still going to try it because I want to know. So I think it's a wonderful gift. How is your team? If you'll ask your team, what do you think is the best? What would they appreciate the most? What did they take the most?
I hope, and maybe we should poll them, but I hope that they would say the authenticity, authenticity to be real. I hope that they would say that I was respectable and respectable of them for what they know and they bring to the table, and respected for the knowledge that I have, the respect I have for our mission of growth, our mission of, achieving the goals that we have. And I hope that they would say that I was trusted. If those three things were their takeaways, and I'm pretty confident it would be, then I've succeeded. I've won. And I would say the same for my daughters. My daughters, outside of being their mom, I want them to look at me as somebody that led the household, led them, and showed them ways that they can be successful by being authentic, but most importantly, being trusted and respected.
I mean, I think that's a beautiful goal, and I'm sure that if we'll ask your team, I'll ask them next time. I'm sure they will say the same.
You know them all.
I will do a follow-up. I will ask when I see the team next time. I will start correcting polls. I'll report back with the results, but I have high confidence that this will be exactly what they'll say.
You're generous. Thank you.
I am not being generous. I'm going to circle back to my favorite question, which is normally my first question, because I always love to ask it. Superpower. If you had to think of one of your best qualities, and that could be worst and best in the same time, what really is your secret sauce as a person? What would it be?
So I think my superpower would be my instincts. And it's both a positive and a negative because it's always churning. I'm always churning to be in tune with those inner thoughts because they've guided me so well. But it's a hindrance because I'm I suppress them, like, maybe not, and I doubt them. And it's a challenge sometimes not to hear that inner voice, that instinct that propels you to what you should be or what we could be doing. I'd like to just take an extra moment, though. Beyond a superpower, I really am driven by my personal power. And the nuance there is I think a superpower is innate, and it's kind of like this driver. For me, though, my personal power is more of a driver for me. And that is my strength and my work ethic. And why do I say that? I strongly believe that my preparedness, and I'm constantly working to learn more and grow more. And I think that is what propels me more than my instincts, is my preparedness. And I don't believe in luck. I don't think things come to us and we're just lucky. I think it's because we've put enough work into it. We've put enough preparation and put ourselves in positions to be successful or relational or in the right spot because of your instincts to take advantage of something. That is preparedness, not luck. And I think those are the things that have helped me more than my superpower.
I mean, I think that preparedness and that perseverance or that determination is, in a way, can be looked at it. I mean, maybe because of my perspective. So I think when we're looking at my husband, like his work ethics is one of the things that makes him, and like he loves what he does, and he would work in it and work on it and work it at least until it's perfect. You can't even talk to him really while he's working. He's really not really conversational. So I think that's a different, it's just kind of like the mentality, and I completely understand that. And another area, it can be superpower. What makes you stronger is just that ability, need to show what, like, even like for me, part of it was prove people wrong. I think in college I went to first day and I was still halfway, like wasn't for fully, like I still had to finish one thing. I was trying to go to university, like to start, and I showed up and I'm studying East Asia and I'm studying Chinese. And one of the first thing, group of guys were like, oh, you'll never make it because you've never been to China before. And they're all older than me because I went directly into university, and they all traveled before and been to China. And I'm like, I hate when people tell me I can't do something.
Yeah.
Uh,
I completely resemble that. I don't have the depth and international experience that you just mentioned, but it was challenging. You mentioned about being told no in sales. I was too. A number of times I was told no. I mean, I think, you know, it's a numbers game, and I've passed that along to my daughters, especially when right now they're interviewing and they're going through internships, and they get rejected. I'm like, great, you're just
yeah,
two calls closer to a yes. And they look at me and I'm like, it's a numbers game. Like, this a no is just preparing you for the next yes. And that I think is because I wanted to prove somebody wrong, or just overcome their expectations.
yeah, always. And I ended up being like the best of my class in trying, like in this specific, especially in that.
I
But
love
it
that.
was that real, like, nah. So I had this propel me throughout my career, and a few times when people tell me, oh, you can't, or look down on me, or think that I'm, I don't know, a woman or a young, like, I mean, I was 25 back then, so I was telling like people twice my age, like this is my expectations. That was the easiest part, but sometimes it can be a bit difficult, being in that room and being in that position, and you really have to learn to hold yourself in a certain way, which is not always simple and for worse. That's why I'm saying your superpower sometimes is also like, it's not always easy. But the same thing you tell your daughters, I told my husband, who's a film director, gets now, he's not used to being in that space of sales. So when he now has to send emails, and I'm like, oh, I sent an email and they didn't respond to him. It's like, how many did you sell? 20? Like, don't talk to me until you send 1,000 emails. Like, don't even come. But don't even like send 1,000 and we can talk there. So I think that's
But
where sales really makes you resilient.
yeah, but what you're instilling in him is the confidence to do the next one. It's
Yeah.
the brush it off without saying brush it off, which is so cliche. You're saying, yep, it's fine. Next one. And you're almost diminishing the no by accepting the challenge of the next opportunity. So I love that. And I mean, it's hard for me to hear, although I do appreciate it, that someone told you no and that you couldn't do it. You're so accomplished. But I can see it.
I mean, I've been told no more than I actually take them on now. Now I get cheeky. So when I produced my first film, because I produced also with Zaim, I would just like, I'll go to big artists. I'll go to like big people, and I'm like, yeah, you're gonna, because I get cheeky. Now I'm like, I don't care. I go, I don't mind. We can. I've been told no so many times. I don't like. I don't. I'm not particularly scared of being told no. The screaming was more difficult, but you can deal with that as well. So that's what I think build character to a degree. But I will use this to navigate to kind of like a different question of like the shared experience of women, because I'm saying that is build character, and I think there is some similarities, or I don't know how you felt about the shared, like the experience of being a woman in a tech space, and especially sometimes more traditional tech space. And how did you feel and overcome that experience? Or did you feel about it in general?
Sure, I I do feel it, but it's probably because I've been worked in a pretty male dominated space for decades. And at first it was just it was just to compete. And so I didn't think about it as a female versus male. I thought about it as just making sure that, again, I was prepared, making sure that I could exemplify myself in my work, not my gender. And I understand now, being maturer, but also being in the space at a leadership level within the company, that it's so important that we recognize others and what they're thinking, whether it's gender-based, whatever their
Yeah.
challenge or blockers are. But I think we overcome that. And I like to think about it as what we perform versus who we are as a skin color or a gender or otherwise. So all that to say is I like to overcome that quickly by demonstrating what I know and demonstrating what we for Triton Digital can do for a client to overcome, and being trusted to be able to do that. And I don't think that has anything to do with my gender. I'm not diminishing the impact that it might have, but as soon as I can A, open my mouth, and B, talk with confidence and trust, it's eroded. And when all else fails, if I'm falling short a little bit, just put some heels on. I'm at the level and we'll just move forward. I'm kidding, of course.
Of course. I mean, look, I when I started, I was like, I didn't even think my gender was anything. I didn't think that anyone wanted to, like, I just wanted to prove myself. I was so hungry. I think it's as I matured in the industry and as I spoke to more women, that I sometimes understood that maybe my gender did have an impact in terms of how I was treated at some point. Um, do I let it stop me? No, I hate being told no. But do I sometimes want to acknowledge that it's there, because we need to acknowledge it for people not to feel like they're alone or insane? Sometimes I do. I love hearing about spaces where you don't even see it. You don't even feel like it's there. And I think a big part of it is probably thanks to you being in leadership, being a part of that company for so long, and instilling that culture of acceptance and being open to the people, and you don't really care who they are as long as you don't care about their skin or the external of who they are. You care about who they are as people.
Sure. The thing that I like to profess is in different panels that I participated on, or even seeing my friends, my mentors, female CEOs of companies that I truly respect. It may be the perception before it's the panel, before the conversation starts. 30 seconds into it, it starts to talk about the results. It starts to talk about difference makers in their work performance and mission, rather than their gender, rather than their race, rather than their sexual orientation. All that is eroded the minute someone confidently opens their mouth and speaks with authority. That's what I like. And I think that goes to a male or a female or any of those variations of persons, because we're all so valuable, but also so awesome. And I think that's what comes out. And that's what I like to think of. There's going to be enough naysayers, especially those behind a keyboard that drive a keyboard and are faceless. I don't want to be another naysayer, especially to a woman that's trying to do exactly what I did, prove themselves by their work values and their results. I never want to tear that down.
I mean, I think, but that kind of comes to your, also when you talked about emotional intelligence and you talked about like caring and coming with empathy. I think that's very well connected. Because not if I don't know if everyone is like that. I mean, like we live in a much better world than I thought we were. But like it sounds to me like you really see your team and see the people and really care for them. Um, you can correct me, or I don't think it's. I don't think. I think it's right.
I don't want to correct you. I'm very thankful. I appreciate the compliment. I hope you can ask them that question too.
So how much do you think that has like, so how did you build a culture for your team? We'll go somewhere else. I mean, I think that there's
Sure.
something here really healthy in the way that you build a culture for your team and for the company in terms of
Sure.
accepting people and building them up.
I'm super happy you asked the question because it allows me to deflect a little bit from me, which I'm more comfortable about talking about the team. Super proud of the team, not just the team that we have in place now, but as you can imagine, there's been a lot of successful people that have passed through Triton. We've been a company that people leave and come back. So I think that's one of the biggest compliments of our culture. And today the team is extremely diverse in terms of thought, persons, cultures, right? Across such a vast space, vast geographic footprint, if I can speak properly, that I think I built the team based on harnessing their knowledge, as well as creating a team of trust. I know I've mentioned that several times, but it's so important that when we come to a conversation, there's a trusted group. It's a circle of where you can be vulnerable, you can be authoritative, as long as you're not disrespectful. That is my one stop that I will not tolerate amongst the team. I don't care what your role is. You absolutely must respect everyone on this team. And then it goes to our clients, respecting what their position is. Our clients have a lot of different perspectives about what we should be doing, how we go about our business, what our business should be versus what it is, but usually starts with understanding their perspectives. So I think so much about our team is that we have that as a foundation: understanding, respect, and trust. And if we can grow from that, it allows us, you mentioned the word, which I really appreciate, hear one another. And when we can hear one another, we do that adage of listen more, talk less, and it helps us get further into appreciation for what we need to be doing and then make appropriate decisions.
How do you build that trust within the team? Because that's something which is not always easy to do. It's actually quite an amazing achievement of building a team that really trusts one another.
I believe it starts with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I can think of a couple of examples.
Yes, please.
I try very hard in a team environment to start with, we're in a trusted environment, speak openly. And if it starts to derail, you stop, park it, and move on to the next conversation. And immediately, and I try very hard to do this, immediately go back to that person one-on-one where it derailed and counsel. I think the biggest thing is people don't appreciate that they need to stop and reflect on somebody else's perspective about what was being said. That's where conversations can start to devolve into challenges, arguments, disrespect. The other thing that I try very hard to do is give advice based on my experience, based on my own failures to others. And that's immediate. I think it's so important that when you hear somebody on my team that didn't perform as well as they could, or that they are, to immediately give them feedback. And sometimes it's that positive sandwich that you heard so much about, where it's very constructive. You give them the raw, here's what you need to do better, and then layer on something that they did really well at the end so that they take away the confidence to try harder rather than a beat down. But sometimes you just have to be real. And I am known for being very direct, but respectable. And I think as soon as you can call an item out, not personally, but from an attribute perspective, get them to see the correction. Everyone wants to do better. And you cannot, as a leader, you cannot do that unless you come from a place of trust and respect. Otherwise, you're just attacking. And so I think those two things are really important to work in conjunction. But that's what I try to do. And I think I've seen the blessings of people accepting that critique and applying it. There's no greater joy as a leader to say, okay, they did it, they tried it, they grew. And now you're preparing them for their next role, whether that hopefully is within Triton to grow Triton or their next role at somewhere else.
I mean, I think that's wonderful. And I think that that's what every person who manages people should aspire to. I'm also, I mean, I grew up in a direct culture. And what I try to do is sometimes balance it with like, think of how you're going to phrase things, because how you're going to phrase things will, you said respect and kindness. Say it with kindness almost in a way that is building rather than tearing. And that's what I really would love to see more with people who say they are direct. And I appreciate directness. Just tell me how it is. So completely with you, with a dash of like just kindness and carefulness of how you're going to say in a way that will make them want to be the best version of themselves.
I'm so glad you said this, and it's a little bit of a tangent to your question, but I'm compelled to say it. I didn't come from that space. I came from a speak when spoken to, and I don't, had a wonderful childhood, nothing about that, but it's just the way I was raised. And I learned to talk just to hear myself, talk just to get attention. And it wasn't until I got into my professional career that I learned words have meaning and words should be pithy. And those are the things that I try to teach my girls, my daughters. Every word you speak must be intentional and be meaningful. My husband and I have given our girls a voice. When you speak, we will listen. And so it is not speak when spoken to, but it is make yourself known, but make it intentional. And I think that carries us through in a business world as well. And I think it goes to, regardless of gender, be authoritative in what you're speaking to, and not just speak to get attention, not just speak to be recognized, but be recognized because what you're saying is intentional, is valuable, and has,
Meaning.
construct into the conversation you're making. So I again, probably tangential to your conversation, but it is a hallmark of where I hope that my authenticity has been polished.
I think that's actually extremely valuable and extremely true. And it's a struggle that I like when I was younger, I sometimes felt like when also culture where you have to fight to speak. So everyone speaks on top of each other. If you want to be heard, you kind of have to like fight for it. It's both good and bad. It means that I got comfortable with speaking up, even if I don't have permission. And just like getting myself right in there and not asking for anyone to allow me to speak. It also means that you learn to fight for your voice, which is sometimes doesn't create the healthiest patterns. And I acknowledge that and sometimes I do actively try to work through it and understand where can I do better and where can I grow as a person and as a communicator, where I don't need to carry that baggage. So naturally, we're a creature of the environment that created us and all of our experience put together, for better and for worse. But this is something that I actively work on.
Yeah.
Hopefully making progress, but actively working on.
No, I mean, the recognition is key, but absolutely. I mean, there's so many ways that, daily you're like, oh, you do better on that. That recognition, instead of being oblivious to it, I think is what makes you so successful and so genuine. I mean, anyone that meets you obviously is one, impressed by your authority. I've met you on a number of occasions and you are articulate into the deliverables. We're speaking about business in those contexts, but you're also just an authority because you have a command of your material. And you would have never, those are probably things where if you're like me, you left that conversation thinking about shoulda, woulda, coulda, instead of I rock that. I nailed every question that was put in front of me because I know my business. We should be talking more about the latter rather than the things we could have done better.
I will really thank you so much for that. I like really appreciate that and very glad this was the impression I left. Obviously, for me, knowing what we do was also a big part. I think my first job I worked in cybersecurity. Also surrounded by men. And I was launching, it was hardware products, and I had to try to figure out what we do and how we do it and all this kind of problems. And I was launching 6 different products. I was learning the basics or trying to learn the basics of electrical engineering, mostly for the job, like to execute on my job. And there was a lot of different details. My aspiration was always to learn and to do better and to understand all the details and to know exactly how everything worked. A lot of challenges, but I think what it gave me later in life is that confidence that I can pick up almost anything and manage. And I think that's what you're also trying to instill in your girls, that confidence more than anything else, that you can fail and learn something again, that you can try anything, you can do anything. So I'm really inspired to meet them. I think they're going to be remarkable women and they're
Thank
going
you.
to shape the future. And it's always really great to see very conscious parenting.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
like,
I'm incredibly proud of them. I could talk forever on them and their accomplishments, and but thank you. I think they're great.
I mean, first, just we should acknowledge one another because we don't always acknowledge ourselves. Hopefully, this is a reminder for each of us to just acknowledge what we do. And I'm going to move to my kind of last, kind of going through maybe some of the people that help you through your career and kind of helped lift you through it. Though I think there's so many things I can ask you, but I will try to kind of go through. And what do you think have been what propelled you or helped you, and the people that help push you towards that end?
I thank you for the question, because it is one where we should celebrate our mentors as well as those that you look across the landscape, now a global landscape for me, and really appreciate the nuances of interactions, various interactions. I mentioned a couple of them. John Rosso, our CEO, has been demonstrably impactful in my growth. And I would say more so than being a great boss, he's been a mentor in the space of he is a Jedi, as I like to call it, in emotional intelligence. And for me to watch him lead with humility, with empathy, as well as bringing a culture, a very diverse culture along that has grown over the last 18 years is impressive. But I learned so much from him about his leadership style as well as leading the company. He is tough. He's accountable. He holds all of us accountable, but he does it with such humility, such grace. I hope one day that somebody will say that about me. Several others that have been really impactful in me is my first manager at Triton was Dominic Milano, who gave me so many opportunities. And he's now with a partner company at Triton Digital. But I was able to see really just how you can handle business with humor as well as with nails. And so I think that I've been able to be a little more self-deprecating and be okay with being myself, but also getting business done. Neil Shore has been a tremendous leader for me for 18. Oh, yeah, he's moved on from our company, but he's still. In fact, just a couple of weeks ago, I called him for a decision I made, and his first sentence was, "I'm your number one fan," and to have that was just awesome. Even after all these years, he didn't have to say that, but I truly believe it, and I think candidly, I think he says that to a lot of people. But he is just a very genuine person in that way. I think from a women leader perspective, I look at who I'm blessed to call friends, Susie Hetrick, who's CEO of Wide Orbit, and Kathy Sirkus, who is CEO of Ad Large and the Forward Network. Those are two, and I hate to name names because I'm leaving out a plethora of people that have been so important, but I love that throughout my tenure at Triton, I've been able to create friendships that are also mentors. And I look to them in the way that they lead their teams, not just their companies, but their teams, and the growth that they've been able to have. And again, those are areas where I can emulate, but I can also have real conversations with them. We can be honest and vulnerable and make the best versions of ourselves from some of their experiences. And I think if there's more collaborations, regardless of gender, where you can have that vulnerability to accept their learnings and practice them, I think we just grow better. And I hope the team that I lead, who I'm extremely proud of, can also rely on me to be vulnerable, rely on me to share my experiences, and vice versa, so that we can all grow.
I think vulnerability is the biggest strength, and you have to be the bravest to be vulnerable, because it's so hard, and there's something honestly quite amazing about it, and how much it can also, the ripple it creates, because when you're vulnerable, you're giving someone else a license to be vulnerable in front of you.
100%. Well said.
Last question. Because you mentioned, like, when we were chatting or reviewing the conversation, what we're going to talk about, you mentioned the whole experience of the ability to work from home and finding that work-life balance, which is, I don't think I have work-life balance, so I really need to be taught. How was your experience finding it, and what is it like?
I think I'm eternally grateful for Triton and the ability to have better work-life balance. As I mentioned, prior to Triton, I was in radio, and I was always that person that was not dependable in my family. My husband would be like, "When are you coming home?" I'd say a time. He was like, "We'll see you an hour later." And he wasn't wrong. It was my best endeavor, but I just couldn't get away and participate. And my youngest is almost 19. So I started Triton when she was just over a year and a half old. She's only known me to be present. And so when they get off the school bus, I was present. I wasn't available, right? They were always, and my door was shut or always working. But the fact that they knew I was available. And then as they grew, I travel, as you do. Probably, we both are on planes more than we are in our desks. But I'm always accessible. And one thing that my children have, now my young adults, have always known is I'm accessible. I'm available. And because I had the work-life balance of being present, I could steal a couple of minutes and go tend to the mommy I need. Or can you just help me for 20 minutes? Or could you just pick me up? And manage my schedules in such a way that allowed me that flexibility to be available to them. I'm so grateful. And even though I travel a lot, like you, even though that I'm away a lot, I have a great foundation. I built a great foundation, and I have a great support system to be able to do all the blessings that I've been able to do as a global leader in the company and participate and be active while still having, I think, really strong foundations with my daughters. I am not distant from them. And now they're at university. Both of them are in university, but we still find that connectivity. And I owe so much of it by being able to have a flexible work environment. Now, since COVID, I was work from home before that was cool after COVID. But I think people are finding that balance, I hope.
Yeah.
And even with more back to office, I think that flexibility of 3 days a week, 4 days a week, having that flexibility, I think, is allowing that balance to come into play. But I can say without fail, it is one of the reasons that I'm successful in work, because I feel like I have balance at home.
I mean, I think that's a wonderful piece of advice, regardless of what you do, because we all need a bit of balance in life. and to just have some space. I think that even though I'm not sure I'm very well balanced, I'll admit it. I'm one of the first people to admit it. I think allowing, because I do get to work from home, like at least half the week, I spend like 3, 2. I spend most of the time working from home, even just having that, like walking the dog together, having a few minutes. You just saw my husband trying to come in, trying to show me something, sending him to pick up my dry cleaning, which hopefully he did, is really wonderful. And
But you,
yeah.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you, my
Oh,
apologies.
please, everyone can interrupt me. I interrupt so many people. I give it in some
Well,
open license.
well, my point was going to be you're unapologetic, which is great. You should not have to apologize. Again, going back to how you started the conversation before about gender, I think before people were comfortable with flexible work environments or work from home, we would be apologetic for that. Oh, I'm working from home. I'm so sorry. This is life. And part of my life, a big part of my life, I spend more hours in this office than I do out there, not in the office, and because of the time zones you mentioned, like you, I mean, we're in here at 6 a.m. I'm in here at 6 p.m. I'm in here at 9 p.m. if it has to be. But I can take those outlets. I can control my time to say that 30 minutes I'm going to take back. And I'm not apologetic. My dog is snoring on the floor right now. Luckily, you can't hear it, but she's comfortable. She's fine. So you don't have to be apologetic about it. And I think that is part of just being intentional about this conversation without being apologetic about your life.
I think it's also like I told my team, I don't really care. Like, you need time, like, you need to go to the doctor, you need to, like, I trust you to do your job. I'm holding you accountable to do your job. I don't need to know where you are at every moment of the day. I will also take a minute to maybe go grab something from the post office because I'm then going to work until late. It's all fine. And it's also, as we learn, guys, stop. As we learned to trust more in our employees and not to, oh, you have to be there 9 to 5 and it's really strict and like where you're going. Just my first job was like that. They would scan the card and make sure that you're there enough of the time. But I mean, if you're there not really focusing, it's not helpful to me. I much rather you just do what you need to do. And if you need to go deal with life, because you need to go to a doctor appointment or to pick up the laundry or to care for your grandmother, I don't like, that's perfectly all right. We're all human.
And I actually think that as a leader, it is better today. It is better for anyone, regardless of gender, because they don't have that resentment. And whether it's expressed or internalized, there's this push and pull if you don't have that flexibility.
Yeah.
And I think that the minute it's not a thing, to your point, you trust your team. If you don't, there's probably bigger challenges. You trust your team, go do your business. Because I know when you come back, you're going to be intentional about the business you do for us. That's what you want.
Exactly. And that's the only way I think. Like, I can, it's not children. I'm like, I don't know, you're adults. We are all adults and we know what we need to do. I need to be able to trust you, and that trust is returned then. Because if I trust you, I've always worked hardest for people I never wanted to disappoint. One of the things I've always wanted to do is become that person that my team will not want to disappoint me. So that's what I aspire, as I will continue to aspire to do, is because I know that was my biggest motivation, not the strictness, not anything, but just me feeling that I can disappoint this person because they believe in me. I don't know.
Yeah. Awesome.
Final note, you said you've learned so much over the years about like empathetic leaders and like leadership style. If you had to give one advice, probably the advice to give your daughters, what would be that advice?
My mantra is talk less, listen more. I think that is so important because then you actually participate in conversations. The advice that I give my girls is to be confident in themselves. And I do that in a couple of ways. One, it's to constantly talk through what's going on, what's led them to the challenges that they have, but also reflect on the positives that they have. And I think that in business, we're always challenged with the KPIs we have to hit rather than the successes, because many times the successes are short-lived and the challenges are pervasive. But if we can focus on the successes and use those successes to drive more of the challenges to be minimized, that's a golden thing. I think more than any advice, when I retire, my biggest success is going to be my daughters and their happiness. And I hope that we can agree on what their happiness is. But if they are happy, that'll be my greatest success. If in business, it's a lot more short term, but we're meeting our goals. I've been able to manage across the consecutive years of growth, both programmatically, the revenue we generate for our clients programmatically, as well as our client license-based business. That's awesome. Those things are great hallmarks. They're not my be all end all. They are for the year, and I celebrate those wins with the team. It's my daughters and the hope and happiness that they have. That's my success.
That's beautiful. And with this positive, and I think that we all need to find what is success really to us, and kind of keep it close to our heart through better and worse. I will say thank you so much, Stephanie, for joining me today for another episode of Women Lifting Women. I hope you had a good time. I had a wonderful time with you.
Emma, thank you. I think what you're doing is fantastic and inspirational. I know watching and listening to some of the podcasts that you've done thus far was inspirational. So thank you to all those women that you've interviewed thus far, because I took things from those conversations. So I appreciate the invitation. Thank you for allowing me to have a voice and to participate in your great study.
Thank you so much. So to our audience, thank you so much for joining another episode of Women Lifting Women. For this episode and many more, go to www.womenliftingwomen.io, and I will see you all soon.